All right, everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon of Doom. I am Kyle Mikey, Lions beat reporter for MLive, joined as always by Ben Raven. Another victory in the books for Detroit. They are now 2-1. Ben, heading into a really big game. Monday Night Football, Seattle Seahawks, Ford Field. I feel like it's kind of like a repeat of last year. I know the Lions are hoping maybe it plays out a little bit differently this time.
Yeah, no kidding. There have been so many points scored the last time these three teams have played. I was just going through Geno's stats from the last two starts, and it's just unbelievable. But yeah, Dan Campbell led Lions are 0-3 against the Seahawks, only one win against this franchise, and it was back in 2012 in this century. So,
Yeah.
they've had their number. It's a new head coach, it's a new offensive coordinator, but a lot of the players are the same, and they're one of the last 5 unbeaten teams in the NFL.
They're playing good football. I would say they've had probably the easiest schedule in the league. I don't know if they're quite as good as what the box score says, but it's a good team, good coach. They're playing good defense. The head coach is now Mike McDonald, who coordinated the Ravens defense for the last 3 years. They were top 10 all 3 years. Lions played the Ravens last year. It didn't go that well. I was in Baltimore. It was like, it kind of reminded me of 2014, going way back here, when the Lions had a good season. They won 11 games, and they went to New England and just got face planted by the Patriots. That happened last year. I mean, the Lions were a really, really, really good team, an elite team, and they go to Baltimore and just lay an egg. They were down 14-0 within like the blink of an eye. It was 21-0 within like 17 minutes of that game kicking off. The Lions offense, which was high powered, really struggled against that defense. I'm really curious to see how much all that translates to this game here, because the scheme is pretty similar that Seattle is running to what the Ravens have run, and the Lions were confounded by it.
Yeah, and Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson both don't plan to take a lot out of that game film. They've both been asked about it, and Campbell just laughed "No, man, I ain't looking at that one because our game plan was out the window in 4 minutes." And Ben Johnson more or less said the same thing, and that's probably wise, actually, because nothing worked.
No,
nothing worked.
It actually kind of reminds me of the Carolina game from 2 years ago when they had
the Shane Zylstra game.
Yeah, they had turned a corner. They had won, I think it was 3 straight. They were on the periphery of the playoff chase, and we all know they ended up missing it just by the tiebreaker at the end of the season. Yeah. Yet they go into Carolina, which was, we all know what the Panthers are under Dave Tepper. God bless their souls, and just got planted. The Baltimore game last year was just peculiar.
Yeah, and you see a lot of similarities, like you said, on that Seahawks defense. Great defensive backs, get interior pressure. But the one thing working for the Lions is that the Seahawks are banged up. Byron Murphy, the stud nose guy, defensive tackle, doesn't sound like he's going in this game, and that's big, especially when Frank Ragnow will not play. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, beautiful way to tee it up. I don't know if you're looking at my
notes.
Oh, wow.
I wasn't.
We have a mailbag. There were plenty of questions this week about the injuries, which are substantial in Detroit. So let's start there, and then we'll dive into what's going on in Detroit. Ryan Comic from GR asks, my question is, who plays the biggest role Monday night in replacing the ones who are out or battling injury and won't be 100%? Frank Ragnow is obviously the biggest name on the injury report, but I would love to see Ukwu elevated on the edge opposite Hutch for some more juice. Thanks, as always. Let's start with Frank Ragnow. He's already been ruled out by Detroit. He's got a partially torn pec. The man is hurting because he's played through everything. A fractured throat a few years ago, which is kind of like my favorite story. He allowed 0 pressures, by the way, that day. No hits, no sacks, no nothing. He played a great game. Couldn't talk for 2 weeks afterward, but and he was an all-pro. I think it was last year, right? He played 1 week after having surgery on his meniscus. Yeah. This guy is crazy. In the playoffs, that's what I remember is against Tampa and Vita Vea, and he's got a sprained ankle. He's got a sprained knee. I think there's one more injury, a back injury. Yeah. And the dude is blocking one of the heaviest, most powerful players in the league, including on a 4th down touchdown, if I remember correctly. So Frank Ragnow's a bleeping warrior, in the words of our old friend Jonah Jackson. So he's hurting because he's already been ruled out for this game this week against Seattle. Graham Glasgow is going to slide to center. I expect that to be the configuration. The real uncertainty is who plays left guard. I think it'll be Awasika, who's played, I think, decent ball as a replacement before. I think the Lions have really built some good depth and have some options that they like, and options that are experienced going into this game against a very, very good defensive front.
Yeah, I feel very confident based on everything. Graham will be center. I do lean Awashika, but I do think Nice is in the play there as well, because he's someone, I mean, he's going to be up because he offers center flex too, just in case the worst happens. But yeah, I would lean Coyote and then Nice, I'd say for sure. But yeah, Coyote has started games for this team before. He's been in this program for a while. I do think that he's the guy first up for that guard spot.
I think this is one of the big keys to the game is how they replace Ragnow. I mean, like, listen, we like the options, but Frank Ragnow is Frank Ragnow. He's an all-pro for a reason. You lose something without him on the field. And I know they like their options. I mean, I looked it up. Graham Glasgow has played 2002 snaps at center for the Lions. That's not even including his Denver years, across 38 starts. The man is experienced at the position. That's one of the reasons why they targeted him to bring him back to Detroit. This regime is because he plays great guard and he gives you excellent backup play at center. When you have a center in Frank Ragnow who's been battling toe issues for a number of years and was falling apart at the end of last year, having a guy who can be a really good starter at guard, who in a pinch can move to center and play those snaps when you need them, which it feels these years you inevitably need them at center with Frank Ragnow's injury stuff. It makes him a very valuable player. And we both like Graham. We're pretty close to Graham. I feel very comfortable saying that, reading between some lines. I don't think he likes moving around as much as he does. I really don't. Like, I remember last year, like, he thought he was coming in to play guard, and they ended up like splitting his snaps at center in training camp until Big V went down with the injury, but didn't like that. And he told the coaches that. But I will give him credit, because while he might want to like settle in at guard and plays his best ball when he's just playing one position, like I think most people would, when you move him around, he plays well. And that's a big key in this game, because the Seahawks have a very good defensive front, 3 of the top pressure generators in the league, just in that front 7. And so, I think their ability to cope with that while not healthy is a huge key to this game.
Yeah, and it speaks to just how team-friendly Graham's contract is, because there's not a lot of very good starting guards making what he's making, and also adding the ability to start at center is just such a huge coup for this team to have, for sure. So yeah, like you said, losing Frank Ragnow sucks, but like having Graham at center, like that, you feel good about that. You feel good about that one piece right there.
There are more injuries than just that. Derek Barnes, versatile guy who's played. We all talk about Derek Barnes and how good he is, but I don't think fans really have an appreciation for just how much he's doing for this defense, which has been one of the best in the league. Playing 5 positions. I mean, he's playing good ball. He can rush the passer and come off the edge. He can cover. He can fit the run. I mean, he's playing at a high level in all the ways you need a guy at that outside linebacker spot to play. He's on IR, so we're going to see them turn to guys like Malcolm Rodriguez. Obviously, Jack Campbell's going to play a lot. I think Alex Anzalone is going to make his return this week, which is huge. But you might see them go all the way down to Ben Neiman, Trevor Nowaski, Jalen Reeves-Maben. I think it's going to be an all hands on deck situation at linebacker. And the good news is, Ben, they have so many pieces who have played so many snaps, including starting snaps from guys like Malcolm Rodriguez and Jalen Reeves-Maben. I think they like their options, even though obviously losing Barnes is a big deal.
Yeah, losing him for that Sam spot, for those end and edge reps he was getting. I mean, like you said, the man was playing snaps in the slot and looking good at it. I mean, losing that against an offense like this with 3 very good and 1 elite wide receiver, and then the 2-headed rushing attack, because it sounds like Kenneth Walker is going to be back, and Charbonnet's been looking pretty solid in kind of his spell spots. But yeah, because replacing Derek Barnes, it's not just as easy as 1 linebacker or 2 linebackers, because he was doing things that just other guys on this defense weren't. And so it'll be interesting to see what they do at edge, what they do at Sam. The guy that the coaches keep throwing at us is Josh Pascal. I think it's going to be a heavy dose of him, especially with Davenport out. But yeah, I am very curious what happens with that Sam role, what happens with the versatility and how they fill those gaps that they were getting from Barnes, just because that is I can't sit here and give you 1 or 2 names that'll do that. They might have to kind of alter their approach a little bit, losing a guy like that.
That leads into the next question from Warren Fullerton, who wants to know, should the team consider a trade given that Marcus Davenport is out for the season, and who is there that might be available? I don't cover other teams. I don't really know a good fit, and it's hard to get those guys in season. We've seen the Lions maybe try to make deals before, and they deferred on those options. Fans never like that, but I ended up pretty good last year. I mean, they could have used another edge rusher, but I think they like what they got in the draft too, right? Like maybe you don't get the guys that that you're able to score, in the draft if you give away those picks to get a 1-year rental on a I don't know, Chase Young or someone like that. I think they like. Again, their in-house options. I don't mean it's like a broken record, but you're in year 4 of the rebuild. Their fingerprints are all over the roster now. You've had all these drafts to acquire guys like, for example, a Josh Pascal, a Levi Onwuzurike, who's finally turning a corner. I think these are the guys they're going to lean on. They know the system. They've been around. Culturally, they fit what they want to do. Levi is playing the best football of his career by far. I think he's going to fit into that mix as listen, like Levi and Josh Pascal are not Marcus Davenport. Marcus Davenport is so powerful and so long. But Pascal and Levi are both powerful guys. And I think they like those guys as the complements to Aiden Hutchinson on the other side of the pass rush. And then obviously you have the 1-2 combo in the middle with DJ Reader and Aleem McNeil. And Aleem McNeil left last week's game. I know there was some concern there, but he practiced this week. And I expect him to play against Seattle.
Yeah, I think it's more likely that James Houston carves out a meaty role in this rotation than the team going out and trading for one of those guys. I know the two names everyone keeps saying, Hassan Reddick. Do you think the Lions are going to bring in a guy that was paying $800,000 not to practice for the New York Jets? That just doesn't seem – you're going to have to pay that man. I don't see that as a realistic option as a culture fit or financially or blah, blah, blah.
I totally agree. I mean, listen, they just paid Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Penei Sewell, Taylor Decker. I mean, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but you have to pay Aleem McNeil right now, basically in the next few months, or he's gone. And Hutch is coming down the pipe. Hutch is coming down the pipe, and he's going to cost $200 million.
Yes, he is.
So I don't know if bringing in a guy like Hassan Reddick, who,
exactly.
I don't know if I see the fit.
No,
I see it in the short term. Sure, like you could use another guy to plug in there, but it's just not the way this regime does business.
No.
It would be, it's not to say they won't, but they haven't to this point.
No, and it's like the other name is Trey Hendrickson. I know that he's requested a trade. He's got Saints connections, but I just think I lean with the in-house options too, just knowing what we know about this staff and team. I mean, that's the more likely than a Reddick, but I do think it'll be in-house. I think they feel good about what they got.
Answering some of these questions about the pass rush linebacker, these can be big keys to this game as well. I think no Lions fan needs to be reminded of how many games in a row they've lost now, 3 in a row, just by this regime itself. I think they've allowed like 40 points per game in those games. It's been ugly. One of those games was in Seattle. The last couple were in Detroit. Man, I thought they were going to win that game last year, and they forced overtime, and then they lose in overtime. Aaron Glenn's defense has had a really hard time with Seattle and with mobile quarterbacks in general. I will say, obviously, with all the reinforcements we got that the Lions got in Detroit here in this offseason have paid huge dividends. The pass rush has been one of the best in the league. The coverage has been, I think, pretty good. If you take away the pass interference issues of Terry and Arnold, like this secondary is playing at a high level. I would dare to say Carlton Davis has been huge, but Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph are like, I think, top 3, top 4 safety combos in the league at this time. It's still early, but they've been elite, you know. And I think they did a really good job last week on Kyler Murray. And Kyler Murray is a better individual player than Geno Smith. But Geno Smith, I think, is a really good fit in this offense. Probably a better overall offense in Seattle. More consistent. I don't know. I like what they do more. That's a little more versatile. So being able to, again, do what you did against Kyler, being able to contain the quarterback to the pocket, stay, diligent with the rush lanes and so forth, and not because you leave a seam there, he's going to break it. And we've seen that before against Seattle.
Exactly. Like, you don't think of Geno as a dual threat quarterback or a mobile quarterback, especially in year 12, but like, I think he had 45, 50 rushing yards on this team last year. He's somebody that if you give him the window, he'll take it. But to your point about Branch and Joseph, they're playing so freaking good. we're not even talking about Melifonwu.
Mhm.
Like, nobody's asking about him. Like, that guy was such a key piece to the run last year. We're not even talking about him or when he might be back or what the plans might be, because those two have been so good back there, and they're going to have to be on their best because the three-headed Seattle wide receivers are brutal. DK is a freak, man, just an absolute freak. Lockett is dependable and overlooked, and Jackson Smith Nigba. I struggle with that one. Forgive me. But man, he had like 14 catches 2 weeks ago. Like, so they got three big options right there.
It's a good team.
It's a good team.
Lions have beat good teams before. They're a little beat up. That really does concern me. Marco Caracas wants to know the timeline for a partial pec tear, which is what Frank Ragnow is dealing with. Usually it's a few weeks. I think it sounds worse than it is. It's something you can bounce back from. And Frank Ragnow is a tough dude. So I have no insider information. I'm not speculating here, but if it was just me understanding timelines and that injury and the player himself, I think they told him, take a seat this week, put your feet up, get healthy for the stretch run. You're an important player. Yeah. Use the bye week next week to, basically get a 2-for-1 in terms of the rest and come out the other side of the bye, eyeing the Dallas game for a comeback.
Yeah, it's Frank Ragnow too. Yeah. So it's kind of like, 2 weeks. That guy was trying to miss no games with this partially torn pec. If you listen to Dan's radio interview earlier this week, I think he called him stubborn, hard-headed Frank.
Yeah, I mean, he wanted, when he blew out his foot a number of years ago, it was like 2020 or so. He wanted to play through that. He had to be talked out of it. His foot was blown apart. Yeah, the dude. Again, I just go back to the Tampa. I have so much respect for Frank Ragnow, but the Tampa game, you got busted ankle, busted knee, busted back, and you're out there blocking Vita Vea on 4th and goal and a critical. I mean, I think he allowed like 1 or 2 pressures that day. I mean, he played really, really good ball with his body essentially breaking down. It's really, really remarkable stuff from Frank.
What did Ben Johnson call him today? The last of the Mohicans?
Yeah, he did. I forgot about that. That's great. Let's see. Okay, so John A wants to know, with the bye looming after the Seahawks, will the Lions be overly conservative and rest starters that we need to help us beat the Seahawks just to get the players extra rest? No, that's not. This isn't really how that works in the NFL. Every game is so important. They're playing for seeding in the playoffs, home field advantage. Like, you want to get playoff games in Ford Field. That makes a huge difference. We saw that last year when they could have, right? If things would have gone differently in Dallas, maybe you play that the NFC Championship game in Detroit versus going across the country to Seattle, to San Francisco. Maybe things play out differently. These things matter. Every game matters. And Seattle is another NFC playoff contender. They're atop the conference right now. Like, this game matters a lot. So, you're not going to rest guys just to, take advantage of a 2-for-1. I mean, you want to win this game, then go rest up, and then you take the players that you have that are healthy into Dallas and go from there. And I think that's the best way to go.
This is an undefeated NFC division leading team, and the Lions don't want to go into the break 2-2, especially when the Vikings are undefeated in the NFC North right now too. This game matters. I mean, I got nothing else to add. I mean, that game mattered last year in week 3 too. These early games matter for positioning, for seeding, for home field advantage, and that is something that you don't plan for, but like, you have to play for these games. You can't say, oh, we'll just rest this guy another week and get him back in Dallas. No, you've got to win this game.
Yep. Bruce Walker wants to know, while listening to NFL radio, somehow just realized that the Seattle Seahawks head coach is Mike McDonald, who was the defensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens last year when the Lions were held to 6 points. How much Ravens D can/will be brought to bear Monday night? We've talked to Aaron Glenn and Dan Campbell about it this week, and they say that the scheme is very similar. The personnel is obviously different. I think in some ways it's probably better, certainly deeper. I think they have good players at every level, and up front especially. They're getting up the quarterback like crazy. But they want to get teams into 3rd and long and then just crush them with pressure from all directions. So I think the big key for Detroit is to stay out of those 3rd and longs. And if I remember right, in Baltimore, that was a huge issue, is falling behind the chains. Lamar hit him for a touchdown, falling behind the chains. Lamar hits him for a touchdown. Before you know it, you're down 21-0, and that takes you right out of your game plan. And that's something the coaches said this week too in Detroit, is that the tape is almost useless because the way that game went so sideways and so quickly took them out of what they wanted to do.
Yeah, and when you've got defensive backs like Reek Woolen and Devin Witherspoon, who was the apple of my eye 2 years ago.
I remember. I mean, also Brad Holmes.
Yeah,
Also,
exactly. I mean, yeah, you can play that Baltimore style of defense when you send some heat, when you can trust guys on an island to not let things over their head. So I just think the personnel on both sides of the ball, because new offensive coordinator, new defense, Ryan Grubbs from Washington bringing in. Dan Campbell says he doesn't see a lot of quirkiness, but like a lot of they'll get you in no huddle situations if they need to. But defensively, yeah, it's pressure and trusting defensive backs and pressure and trusting defensive backs. So yeah, there's a lot of that Baltimore defense coming here.
Yeah, I think they're going to look to use their running game on first and second down to set up a manageable second and third down. Because you don't want to end up in a 3rd and 8 or a 3rd and 10 because they're going to come after Jared Goff. You've got backup on the interior of the defensive line on the interior of the offensive line going against one of the best defensive fronts in the league. I just think that's a huge disaster. It was one of the things they did really well in the first half against Arizona was just staying ahead of the sticks and making hay on the ground is the best way to do that. I think we're going to see a lot of David Montgomery early in this game.
Yeah, I think you need to. I mean, you need to control the ball. You need to take advantage. I mean, yeah, you're missing Ragnow, but you need to take advantage of Murphy being out of that interior defensive line. There is an opportunity to run the ball there, and you still got guys like Sewell, Zeitler, Glasgow, and Decker. Like this offensive line is built to withhold crushing losses like losing a Frank Ragnow for a game or two. But yeah, run that ball. Don't fall behind. And just it was amazing what they did in Arizona last night. I know it wasn't flashy, but they literally won that game by controlling the game clock on the leg of Jack Fox and playing bend but don't break defense and just milking the clock. And, I think you could see that here.
It was bend but don't break defense, but mostly early. I think it was mostly break after that. I was so impressed. I think that was the best defensive performance I've seen from Detroit in a really long time. Certainly this year, just given who you were playing. I mean, Kyler Murray is, I said that on the podcast coming out of the game, but like seeing that guy live, he's different. Mm-hmm. Like I forgot how good he is. Like and I'm not saying he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I don't think he's there, but like just as a talent, he's incredible what he can do with his feet. And I thought Aaron Glenn put it perfectly when we talked to him just a few minutes ago that this guy's going to make plays. Like he's just that good. The defensive plan against Arizona was, okay, he's going to make a couple plays, but limit the damage. And when he does make a play downfield, that's when you bend but don't break. And that's exactly what they did. They allowed a touchdown to open the game and 6 points on the final 10 drives of the day against one of the best offenses in the league that was really cooking. I thought that was phenomenal defense. And when you consider you lose Derek Barnes, Marcus Davenport, Levi Onwuzurike for a stretch there, Terran Arnold for a drive or two, it was, I thought, just really impressive stuff. And I think portends well going into this game because more mobility in the pocket. You have an explosive offense passing offense downfield. Again, limiting those, limiting the explosive plays from Seattle. Bending but don't break. Going after the quarterback on 3rd and long. Letting Aiden Hutchinson pin his ears back and go is how you win this game.
Yeah. And doing that last week without Anzalone, the captain, the on-field play caller, like the guy that plays nearly, if not every snap, every game. Like that's impressive. And getting him back for this game at Seattle with a lot of non-communication because U-Cycles are going to be filling the crowd for Monday Night Football. And just I mean, they have this defense has shortened the window of opportunities by taking away explosive plays, by forcing teams into 3rd down. Because I think the Cardinals were 1 of 9 on 3rd down last week.
That's exactly right. And 0 of 2 on 4th down.
Yeah, exactly. You do that against the Seahawks, that's a recipe to success. Like they're different teams, but like they beat you in kind of the same type of ways on offense. So if you can just get them into 3rd down, continue to stop in the run, they're going to try and run the ball with Walker. I mean, his contact balance is crazy, and Charbonnet's been strong too. But like you take away that run, make them one-dimensional and pass to beat you from 2nd and longs and 3rd and longs. That's how this defense continues.
Joseph Martin asks, the pass-happy NFL is trending much more toward the run this year. 9 offensive linemen were drafted in the first round of the draft. How much credit do you give the Lions for the resurgence of the ground and pound trend with their model of offensive success from the past 2 years? Some. I do, because it's a copycat league. You even see that now with some of the hires that are going on around the NFL. Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes, they were unconventional hires. Yeah. I think the one that Dan Campbell in particular was criticized, scrutinized because he had no experience as a coordinator. He was more of just this like rah-rah guy, but like he's the culture. He embodies the culture in Detroit, and that is what more than anything else has driven this resurgence, and you see more teams trying to copy that. And yeah, it happens with play style as well. I think Ben Johnson has had some influence on sequential play calling, for example, around the league. I've seen the JMO play now from the 49ers game like it's 5 different times, including by Detroit, on that little end around that with just getting them into space, going forward and run. And definitely with we're seeing less and less. I mean, it's still a passing league, but it's not as dominant as it was a couple of years ago. I saw a stat the other day that showed that passing touchdowns have declined like 5 years in a row, and through week 3 they were down even more through like the past few years through week 3. So I think teams are figuring out how to limit some of the explosive 50-yard plays. We've seen it even with JMO last week. Ben Johnson was talking about how Arizona was playing back against him and was basically just saying, you're not going to beat us deep. So teams do run them. I think defenses are much more set up now to defend that dynamic passing game downfield. A lot of times that means lighter bodies on the field, more athletic guys. And so teams can find more of a mismatch going more physical, which is exactly how the Lions built this thing a couple of years ago with big offensive linemen, 2 tight ends. I mean, Ben, we saw in Arizona, first few plays of the game, 6 offensive linemen with Dan Skipper out there and 2 tight ends. I mean, just like 2,000 pounds of meat out there blocking for David Montgomery. Everyone knew exactly what they were going to do, and they still did it. And I think you are definitely seeing that more and more around the league.
Yeah, to the question's point, I do think the Lions deserve credit for showing that you can rebuild a franchise through the offensive line, through a rushing attack, because they've done it. I mean, that was the recipe to their success last season. It was the recipe to success in their early season this year. And I also do think it is defenses. I mean, we got to give a lot of props to that Patrick Mahomes guy and these crazy quarterbacks forcing defenses to like live in 2 high safety looks to say, you're not going to go over our head. You're going to have to dink and dunk and get creative to beat us downfield. And I do think that there's a couple of things playing into that answer. But yeah, the Lions have shown that you can rebuild into a contender through the trenches, through a running game, while defenses have kind of been forced to find new ways to survive or find old ways to reapply them in this new world of the NFL with guys like Mahomes and Josh Allen and Strouds of the world throwing it deep like crazy.
Joe in Arizona asks, after all the hoopla that was mentioned about the new kickoff rules, all I see is teams taking the safe way out and kicking into the end zone, starting at the 30. Are we going to see exciting kickoff returns or not? There's some typos in there. A little hard to read. Dave Phipp, the special teams coordinator in Detroit, kind of predicted this, saying that basically, it's just safer to kick it through the end zone and accept that you start at the 30 rather than, if you play the field position game, maybe you save yourself 5 or 10 yards on an excellent kickoff play. But the risk is if you do that, it can go 7. You have 70 yards to work with the other way. And so the risk reward kind of doesn't work out in most instances for most teams. That's not to say they won't try it here and there and a situational thing, but I think it makes total sense. Like, okay, on a perfect play, maybe you are starting defensively at the 23 or the 24 or the 25, if it has an excellent play. So you're saving yourself 5, 6, 7 yards. But with the risk of going 70 the other way. I totally understand why teams are playing that safe.
Yeah, and I think Phipp has more or less said that there's going to be you need more rule tweaks to kind of incentivize the kicking team to put that thing in play, because right now there's not a ton, and I think it's going to be touchback city from here until the end of the season, because I mean the Lions have 2 kick returns and they're like Tom Kennedy twice, and neither went to the 30-yard line. So like there is that appeal, but like also like just kick it out of the end zone. I mean, seriously, why wouldn't you? There's no reason not to, basically, until they tweak that rule a little bit.
We have to run out to practice, but before I get you out of here, Ben, prediction?
Oh, God, I'm taking the Seahawks.
Are you?
I am taking the Seahawks, 28-20. I'll give you a score, too.
Wow.
I'm sorry.
I think the Lions win. This defense is so much improved, and I think they'll have a much better plan against Seattle. I think they showed last week what they can really do against even a dynamic quarterback. And they've had some issues with Seattle. I think Aaron Glenn is a prideful guy, prideful. And, he takes to heart what Seattle in particular has done to him the last couple of years. And even Mike McDonald, the Baltimore game was ugly. I just think that playing at Ford Field. It's going to be crazy on Monday night. It's going to be raucous. I like this game for Detroit. The injuries do concern me. I think this team is just a little bit beat up. But look at Seattle's injury report. Like, everyone's dealing with injuries, and Seattle's is like a novel this week. It's so long. So I like Detroit in this game.
Yeah, I believe in what Seattle is building over there. I'm not down on the Lions. I predicted this loss in my game-by-game predictions. They're catching the Lions at the right time, losing some key defenders and stuff like that. There's going to be a lot of changes, and I just think that offense is legit, and that Seattle defense is legit too. I just think they're catching the Lions at the exact right time before the bye week. So, sorry.
That's what we got. Lions, Seahawks, Monday Night Football, going with the black uniforms for the first time. I'm excited to see those rolled out. They look cool. I think they're going to look even cooler.
Yeah.
I think they fit Ford Field, the scene, super well too. I think they're going to pop on Monday night. Two of the best teams in the NFC going at it with playoff implications on the line.
It's beautiful.